Hey everyone, this is Corey with the Grand Old Cast, or the GOC, and I am sitting here with Dewy Joey Ivy.
Hello.
But we are, he is actually, believe it or not, 1993 Cowboy Hall of Fame's claimed cutest cowboy of the year that year.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
tell us a little bit about yourself, Dewey.
Well, I'm 35. I'll be 35 in July, and I've been in the Army come April about 5 years. Um, before I before I joined the Army, I worked for Halliburton for about a year, which is Halliburton's oil support company,
Okay.
and I was part of the seaman crew, and it was my job to transport bulk material and stuff to a job. And I my this is what caused me to join the Army, was that I was working about 230 hours or something like that every 2 weeks. Like we would do 2 weeks on, 1 week off, and I would leave home and never come back. And it was just it just drove me into the dirt, honestly. And I was like,
How long did you do that for?
I did that for about a year. Yeah.
What'd you do before you did the
Before
Halliburton
that,
concrete
before I
stuff?
did Halliburton, I was trying to pursue my occupation in like teaching. So I wanted to do like I dropped out of college in like 2013, and then from 2013 to about 2018, I was a teacher's assistant, trying to save up money. I was a coach, lay coach. I coached wrestling, football, baseball, um, and yeah, like it was not good. I realized quickly that no matter how much time I spent trying to teach, I would never make enough money to really support a family or anything like that.
Yeah.
And I needed a change. And I was 29. I was looking at it, I was like, man, I need to do something crazy. So I joined the Army.
So, where did you grow up? Where did you go to high school at?
So I went to school at like my dad was a football wrestling coach at Empire High School whenever I was fifth grader, sixth grader, and I was going to school in Duncan, Oklahoma. So Duncan's about 20 miles east of Lawton and down in southwest Oklahoma. And I was going to school at Duncan, like one of their elementary schools, and my dad was at Empire, so I decided to transfer out to Empire, and I started getting into sports, football, baseball, wrestling, and I did that until my junior year. My dad transferred from Empire back to Duncan, where he's there now. He's a football coach, wrestling coach, and he coaches archery right now. And yeah, I I was there at Duncan. I graduated at Duncan in 2008, and then I played football at Bacone College my freshman year, and uh, when when I was done with that, I was there for a year, and I went back to Cameron. Was there for Cameron for a year, and then I went to UCO in Edmond, and I was there for about 2 years, and dropped out of college, came back home, started teaching, started doing the teacher assistant and lay coach stuff. I wanted to just try and have like an easy job. I started serving tables, teaching, and we're just being real busy. And I quickly found out that I just didn't have enough money, so that's why I applied for Halliburton and got that job at Cementon. So
So you did the coaching, teaching, serving for about how many years?
yeah, I did that for about 3 years, and then I taught at Temple for 2 years, and that's when I was laying in bed one day and I was like, it's never gonna end. Like I was driving this piece of crap yellow bug car or whatever, and I was like, I want to get a new vehicle. I want all these things, and I was just spinning my wheels doing the teaching stuff. So I went up and started worked for Halliburton, and I realized that I needed to finish my degree, and I started coming up with all these plans on how to do that, and the Army was the way to do it. So
Good deal.
yeah,
So you were 29 when you decided to join the Army,
yeah,
and it was because you were sick of the ridiculous hours at
yeah,
Halliburton.
yes, yeah. Which I mean, I enjoyed my time at Halliburton, like, but it was just very long hours. Like, just you'd go home after your 2 weeks on, and you would just sleep the first 2 days, and then you would relax whatever for a couple of days, and then you were getting ready to go back on the swing of things. So
Kind of sounds like the Army.
yeah, yeah, basically.
But so what did you specifically do at Halliburton?
So like I said, I was a bulk truck operator. So whenever we'd go do a job, so we would Halliburton get the order, and whenever you cement, when you're on the cementing side, Halliburton, this is what they started when they built all their money starting out on the cementing side, and they poured concrete downhole to preserve the oil well, and whenever you do that, you have to have a high pressure pump to do that, because you're pumping 2, 3, 4,000 feet down, and then it's going downhole, and then they have like a it's like a stopper that once the high pressure, it pushes it down, and then it hits the bottom of the hole, and then it comes on the outside of the pipe. And then you push that all the way, push the cement down, and then you push water all the way down to where you get all the cement out of the pipe, and it gets it in the hole basically, and it cements that pipe in the hole, like however deep it is. And I've been on jobs that, you're like a few hundred feet down, and then you're on jobs that are like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,000 feet down.
Wow.
So I mean, it just depends on where they are. But yeah, like it was my job. I would transport like the cement powder to location, and then I would hook up and rig up everything. And when you have that high pressure stuff, you have to have metal pipes and stuff everywhere, and you have a cement head that is attached to the pipe on the oil rig floor. And it goes metal pipe from the oil rig floor all the way down to the cement truck, and then you have like rubber hose and stuff like that to push product to the pump itself, which is like a big semi truck with the pump it's like if there's any water at all left on the pump, it's over the limit. Like it's super heavy, like a 70,000-80,000 pound like truck. And the pump operator, he was up there, and he mixes, and he's got like a computer and stuff that he looks, and he sees the different levels of water and cement mix and the percentage and whatever looks good between him and the cementer, which is the cementer is like the overall manager of the job, right? And then you have the pump operator, and then you have all the bulk hands that are there helping rig everything up. And before I left Halliburton, they were wanting me to be a pump operator, which would have been like $2 or $3 more, which I probably should have done that, because that would have been a really good thing. And then got onto like a cement. If I ever became like a cementer, they got paid like $35 an hour at the time, which $35 an hour with like you hit overtime like 2 days in, because you're there
all the time,
and then you do 100-something hours that week or something like that. So
yeah.
Like I was only making like $15 an hour, but I was on track to make like $100,000 that year.
Holy cow.
So I mean, I was working a ton.
You blew it.
Yeah. I chose the Army.
He sacrificed $100,000 paycheck for the Army benefits. Oh my gosh, that's awesome. So the long hours at Halliburton convinced you to do Army, which gonna do long hours in the Army on the weekends, huh?
Yeah, like I was looking at it, I was like, okay, so I'm 30 years old, I'm looking at retirement, so like, oh my gosh, looking ahead, I was like, well, what am I gonna do? Because I don't even really know, like I've got really no plan for retirement or anything like that. And I was investing in Halliburton for their 401k, and I was like, man, I've got to change something up, because I don't want to work myself to the bone. I want to go back to school, but I didn't have time to go to do school while I was working at Halliburton. So I decided the Army was for me. I go back to school, get my college degree, and that's about all she wrote. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. So, what year did you get? So you were 29. What year was it that you went in?
So it was 2020.
2020.
So, yeah, 2009. My time served. So when you join the National Guard, and this is different for the Army, and whenever you join the National Guard and you sign your papers, your time starts when you sign your papers.
Yes.
So all your time on your RSP weekends when you go to pre-basic training counts towards your time served. And whereas if you're active Army, your time served doesn't start until after you graduate basic
training. Yeah.
So that was a plus. I didn't know that at the time. I was like, oh, okay, well, that sounds good to me. But yeah, like I wanted to do that. I wanted to serve Oklahoma more than I wanted to serve like active duty or whatever. I was like, well, if I join the National Guard, I'll get stationed somewhere in Oklahoma and I can be home, visit my family and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah,
good reasons for it.
Yeah,
really good reasons.
Also huge plus because, like I said, with some of those kids, like I said, that couldn't see their families. That plays a lot. Like I said, when I got to go home at the end of basic training because I was known as Sierra.
It's a big mental boost.
Like, yes,
yeah,
I'm free.
Yeah, like I had a lot of friends like when I'm at my tango school and everybody's getting their papers to go where they're going to go. Some of them went to Korea, one went to Germany, a bunch of them went to like Fort Drum and stuff like that. And like I was like, I'm going back home.
God bless the government. Yeah. Okay, so go to basic training. You are a 29-year-old man, so you're the old guy in the Bay.
Yes.
Probably not the oldest guy, but one of the oldest guys. So how was your Bay? Because that's the way it was for me and Chad. Like, we were the old guys in the Bay, too. But so how was basic training for you? What was that experience like? Like, what?
It was nerve-wracking going, like, leaving. I'd never done anything like that before. Like, whenever I initially left, it was nervous, but I was like, hey, this ship has sailed, so I'm just along for the ride. And like whenever we got to basic and I started getting in the groove, about 2 weeks into it, they say that about 2 weeks or 3 weeks in, if you can make it to that point, you're golden. You've already got the schedule down, you're good. And that's about how it was for me. Like, it was that first couple weeks was tough, red phase, which, I mean, basic's not hard, and
no,
you just get tired. There's a lot of boring standing that you do, but once you get through that, you get to white phase and start shooting guns, and then it becomes like, I mean, you're in like Flynn, you're doing the fun stuff at that point. So
yep,
it was I very much enjoyed basic training. My first so whenever we went through reception, so reception was like a few days, and it's the most boring time.
It is the worst part of basic training.
Terrible time. You get there, you're not doing anything. We all get in line, we eat breakfast, we go back. We're just waiting to go to our unit. And when we finally go to our unit, my basic training cycle was one of the last ones to do the shark attack. And like, you step off the bus and there's like all the battalion drill sergeants are there, and they're just like, it's like they just all look at you, and then they're just like running at you. Like, I was carrying both bags, and I was just like taking it in, like, oh my gosh. And this drill sergeant saw me just like lollygagging. He was like, "Pick up your bags, run!" So I was like, just like running like that all the way down. And I threw my bags in the pile, and we ran over there. They started smoking us, like, "Go get your bags, put them back." Like, it was for like an hour, it was just like back and forth, and it was a blast, like, you're just like, I'm shocked, Then we go through there, we have our MRE for lunch, and then for dinner, that was our first time in the DFAC. We get everything set up. Then they get us
DFAC
outside.
Food the first night you were there?
First night, yeah. First dinner, yeah.
We didn't get DFAC for like a month.
Yeah. We got there, we got all our bags placed, we got back in formation, we marched down to the DFAC, and when you have this whole order of things that you got to go through and like sidestep and like turn around, twirl and stuff like that, right? And I remember. Like, we were all rushing through, and I remember getting my tray. I got my plates, and the silverware was over here, and I totally blanked out, forgot my silverware. And I started getting my food, and I sat down, and everybody starts eating, when they got their forks and stuff, and I didn't have anything. And I just remember going, oh, crap. And I started looking around, and I just remember hunching down, and I just started like just shoveling my food in my mouth just as fast as I could. I was like, please, God, don't let anybody see me. And I got done. Everybody stood up, and we were walking around. And the drill sergeants, they were like, that guy's eating with his hands. Like they had to have seen me because I was like, I did the last turn. I'm about to put my tray up, and I was like, all right, I'm home free. Nobody saw. And I hear this, recruit! I mean, just across the defect, this drill sergeant's knife handing me, and he's just like sprinting. He's like, where's your silverware? And I was like, drill sergeant, I didn't have any. He's like, how did you eat your food? And I was like, I ate it with my hands, drill sergeant. He goes, you disgust me. Get out of here. And like, just at the top of his lungs, just like, oh my gosh. I'm just like, I stepping it over. That was terrible, man.
The defect times are the best.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was definitely like the best of times and definitely the worst of times. There was one time that like I don't even know how, you make you drink like 3 Camelbacks a day. So we get up, we do our PT, we eat breakfast, and I was like, I don't need to pee right now. And I just kept drinking water. We had our classes, I don't even know what we were doing that day. But by the time lunch came around, I had to pee so bad. Like I was just like, that's all I could do. Like we didn't have time to go do any bathrooms or they didn't have any bathroom breaks or anything like that between breakfast and lunch. And I was just like, the longer time went on, I was just like, oh my gosh. Well, then by the time we were eating our food, I was just like, I gotta pee. And I just started just sweating. Like I was just like shaking. And my drill sergeant just like walking her. He's just like looking at me. And he's like, candidate, you okay? I was like, drill sergeant, I gotta pee. He's like, oh, you gotta pee? You gotta pee? You can't hold your pee? And I was like, I was just thinking, I'm holding my pee right now, drill sergeant. Like, I went through the basic thing and all the rigmarole, and went back and I talked to my drill sergeant, senior drill sergeant Arguello, and I was like, drill sergeant. He just looked at me. He's like, what? And I was like, drill sergeant, I gotta pee. And he was like, okay. And I was like, can I go pee, drill sergeant? And he was like, yeah, go pee. I'm like he acted like it was no big deal, but man, and then I just like took off sprinting. And it was like a quarter of a mile to the nearest Porta Johns or whatever. And I was just like going, and that was bad.
He's like Bilbo Baggins around there. Like, I'm going on an adventure.
Yeah. Well, another funny story I've got is, whenever you sit in the defect, you gotta put your feet together. Now they were always telling us, your food tastes better with your feet together. And I was like, okay, drill sergeant. Well, I was just sitting there. I don't know what I was doing, but I was just like lollygagging. I spread eagle, out there eating my food, and you feel the drill sergeants are like sharks, their presence, and I just was like, I was sitting there eating, and I could just feel one like walking behind me, and I was like straightened up, and he's like, nope, I already saw it, candidate, get up. And I was like, crap. So I stood up, I grabbed my tray, and he was like, this is what I want you to do. I want you to walk around. I want you to walk around the defect, and I want you to yell at the top of your lungs, my food tastes better with my feet together. So I started doing that. It took one step, but I got about halfway around, and this other drill sergeant was like, he ran up to me, and he's like, now, I want you to bust a beat. And I was like, I started laughing, and he's like, oh, you think that's funny? And then this other drill sergeant, they're just like, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, okay. He's like, my food tastes better with my feet together. My food tastes better with my feet together. And I was just like, and everybody just starts laughing. And I really repped that one out. I felt pretty good about that one.
But that water thing is no joke.
Mm-hmm.
You will drink water all the time, and you better pray to God your canteens are never empty. Otherwise, you are going to be carrying around a giant water can for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of punishment that comes with not being hydrated, not having your canteens full. As we learned this last weekend at drill.
Yes.
Didn't have our canteens full. We are currently officer candidates at the moment, so they never stop taking that seriously. Hydration is the soldiers were Sammy.
Oh yeah.
On the having to pee thing. I was jetting back whenever I was there. Being older, you kind of you had this level of swagger or arrogance, because you don't put up with a lot of the crap that the kid, some kids are too afraid to make a move. I had to pee really bad one day, like Ivy, and you're sitting out on the CTA in formation, and there's only a handful of drill sergeants out there just lollygagging, in effect, like they're just waiting for whatever time elapse to hit that we have to do the next thing.
Yeah.
And I have to pee, and I just grab a guy, and you're not supposed to go through the front door of the CTA at Bravo 439. You can't, recruits aren't, or trainees as they called us. And I just grabbed Balbo and I said, hey, I got to go pee right now. And we're going through the front door. And he was like, we can't go through the front door. We can't do that. And he goes, what are you doing? Yeah. I go, just trust me. Just if you look like you know where you're going, or you look like if you look busy and you look like you know what you're supposed to do, nobody's going to say a thing.
Yeah.
And as we start walking in, a drill sergeant walks out and passes us. And I looked at her and I said, right, drill sergeant? And she looked at me and goes, right what? And I go, if you look like you know what you're supposed to be doing, nobody's going to bother you, right, drill sergeant? And she was like, yeah. And then I walked right in with that training. He goes, and like the kid was just wide-eyed. That was amazing.
It's like magic.
And that's what I said. If you look like you know what you're supposed to be doing, they're not going to say anything to you.
Yeah, we had a kill zone as well up there. That's like right smack dab in the middle. Our barracks was
Bay.
Yeah. My basic training platoon was the 213, and we were right next to the like where we were doing our mock Omaha drills and stuff. It was like you could see freedom, like there's the fence, but like it was these old barracks and had a middle area where the drill sergeants would walk through, and then they had the side areas where all the candidates and recruits and stuff had to go through. And yeah, it was I had a lot of fun at basic training. It was intense. Now my 2020, I went January 6th, 2020. That was whenever I left home. And then I didn't graduate until March 18th, 2020. And that was the year COVID hit. And my platoon was one of the first, I think it was our graduation, was the very first graduation to be affected by COVID. And my family, they flew in from Columbia. And they flew in from Oklahoma to Columbia.
Fort Jackson, baby.
Yeah, they were there, and we got word that graduation was canceled, that nobody would be allowed on base like 2 days before.
Oh my gosh.
So, but we went through the whole graduation rigmarole and everything like that, and whenever we actually did it, it was just an empty stadium, like with just our drill sergeants and it was just so disheartening, honestly. And then afterwards, we all got held over because they locked everybody down. We all got left over in basic for an extra 4 weeks of the drill sergeants were like, well, we know you're graduated soldiers and we need to treat you better, but you're still in a basic training environment, so just get ready for that. Well, thank you.
Hey, thanks, drill sergeant. Glad we get to spend more time with you.
Yeah.
Oh, that blows, man.
But that was all right. We got our phones. We got to be on our phones once a day, and text and whatever. And then eventually we ended up leaving. I went to my AIT, which was in Jama 15 Tango, and 15 Tango is I'm a Black Hawk mechanic, and my unit was a 244 over here on 169.
Yeah, just up the road.
Yeah. And my AIT is in Fort Eustis, Virginia, and that's like the main helicopter school. Like all the Apache mechanics, Chinook mechanics, Black Hawk mechanics are all there. Plus like the weapons teams, people who learn how to put weapons on the helicopters, maintain them and stuff like that. I think they're like 15 whiskey or something like that. And then you have all the sheet metal MOS, and then you have like the powertrain, which they're like 15 deltas or something like that. But it was pretty cool going to Fort Eustis. It's like just a small hole in the wall base out over there on like Quantico Bay. Like you have the FBI on one side of the bay, and then you have Fort Eustis on the other side of the bay. So it was pretty cool being in that area.
That is neat. So how was Virginia? Was it would you recommend it, or would you say
So whenever we got there, like I said, I graduated basic training on March 18th, but I didn't leave until like April something, like April 18th or something. Something like I was there for about a month, 4 weeks, and when I finally went there, it was still kind of like a cool spring, you know. It would rain on us pretty much every freaking day. I remember doing push-ups, doing PT one morning, and I was doing push-ups in a puddle. like I would go down and my head would be underwater. Like I was like, this sucks. And my 15 Tango is a 15-week AIT. So now that's after you get classed. So because of COVID, you had to do 6 feet all around. So like all the classes were reduced down to like 12 soldiers per class, and it was pretty intense. 15, anything that's 15 series is very high. Like it's a high end, very high demanding. Oh, it's not as physically demanding as like infantry, but it's a very prestigious MOS. Like they put a lot of emphasis. Our sergeants in my class told me that, you know, as a 15 Tango, if you screw something up, right? So say you put on a bolt and you don't do the safety stuff that you need to, like you put like safety wire on there, and like there's like on a critical bolt or something like that keeps the bird that keeps the bird flying. If there's like 3 or 4 safeties on that single bolt, like typically it's got a paw on it, where it's a bolt that has it's a bolt that you stick through, and it has, I don't even know, it's like a spring, but it's got like a paw that sticks out that you can't pull it back out. Then it's also got a washer on there, and then you safety it too. They told us all kinds of crazy stories. But if you fail to do those things and comes out that it was because you failed, I mean, you could be liable. You could face prison time if that bird crashes and kills the pilots and stuff like that. So they told us it was very serious from the very beginning. So
absolutely, as well it should be.
Yeah.
So for Chad and myself here, we've never been to AIT. We have no kind of working knowledge. So we are what's known as 09 Sierras, which means we went into basic training with officer contracts ready to go, assuming we can pass officer candidate school.
Yeah.
So it was basic training back home to the pre-OCS environment, now into the OCS environment. So what is AIT like? Is it like basic training where you live under the scrutiny of the drill sergeants at all times and they'll murder you, or is it a little bit more relaxed? Is it a little bit more?
So it's a little bit more relaxed. Like they definitely take a little bit hands off. Now whenever I went through a couple of years before, they made the transition that they wanted drill sergeants in part of AIT. So we had drill sergeants again at AIT, and they were all former 15 Tangos that were part of my AIT, and they were all pretty cool. One of them was a former 160th, which is the Special Forces Aviation branch, and yeah, they're pretty intense. I had a couple of friends that they got selected to go to 160th, and it was pretty cool. Like they had a lot of cool stories. It's not as intense as basic training because you're soldiers, and when you become soldiers, there's a little bit more prestige with it, I guess. Right. But it's definitely still a training environment, so you still get treated like shit or crap, you know. So I was part of Charlie Company, which is they're all the Tangos, and like Charlie Company, everybody knows who Charlie Company is. Like because when you're a Black Hawk mechanic, it translates well in the civilian world because one, your Tango school actually counts towards your AMP license, because your turbo certified, which I don't even know what all that means, but you work on jet engines that are the same engines that like that the Apaches and stuff use. So you can work on the smaller civilian side helicopters and stuff easier than say like a Chinook mechanic. Like their engines are huge, crazy huge, and the 15 uniforms, their MOS is an extra 2 weeks because of all the stuff they have to work on. So theirs is like 17 weeks long, but yeah, Charlie Company had a reputation there at Eustis, so it was pretty funny. Like before we got there, there was no female tangos at all there. They were all in Delta Company, and that's because it was like a year or so before they had the female tangos there, and the drill sergeants caught one of the trainees transporting a female up to the male barracks with one of their green bags or whatever. I don't the barracks bags. The girl hid in the barracks bag, set it next to the CQ desk, and then they would come down and pick her up or whatever.
That's
and
insane.
The drill sergeant, he was like, "What's this bag doing here?" And kicks it, and it's a girl there. She's like, "Ow!" That's the story that was told.
So okay, that's amazing. So yeah, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of kids who try to sneak, and because they're 18-year-old kids, they're trying to hook up and do all this stuff at basic training, which is it's really dumb. You put your career in jeopardy doing that.
Oh
stuff.
yeah, 100%.
But for people who don't understand. So you think you go to basic training and you become a soldier. That is not the case. So you are officially done with the basic training portion of your soldier. Nobody considers you a soldier until you complete your AIT if you're on the enlisted side. So on the enlisted side, you're not really a soldier until you get your AIT certification. And AIT stands for Advanced Individual Training. So you get your basic training and you get your beret, you get your uniform and all that. And then you go to AIT and you get your advanced individual training certification, which could be infantry. So you can get your infantry certification. You could get your 15 Tango, which is your helicopter repairman or mechanic, excuse me.
Yeah, Black Hawk mechanic, yeah.
But or it could be like a 68 whiskey, which is like a medic. You go get your medic its certification. So you're not. For all those kids who think I went to basic training, I'm a soldier now. That you are the Milli Vanilli of soldiers at that point, and everyone considers you that too. So
you don't really get officially become a soldier until you get assigned to your unit and you officially get your unit patch and all that fun stuff.
So Ivy, I guess the question is, did you enjoy being a 15 Tango?
Oh yeah, like I said, the tangos and the uniforms, those two MOSs right there. That allows you to be a crew chief for a helicopter. So at my unit, before I went to OCS, they wanted me to be a flying crew chief, and I was like, well, I've already signed up for OCS, but heck yeah, I want to do that. Like, so the decision by the time they asked me to do that, the decision was made that I was going to OCS. So it's kind of like a gut punch, because like whenever I showed up, I was assigned to Delta Company, which is the maintenance. That was our maintenance company at my unit, and Charlie Company is the unit. That's the pilots and the crew chiefs company in my battalion, and they were like, "Yeah, we want you to be like a crew chief." And I was like, "Oh, okay." Well, I've already decided I was going to go to OCS, and I told them that, and I was like, "Oh, well, crap." I was like, "Okay."
So, before we move on to your OCS path, what's a memorable or the best story you got from being at your unit?
Oh, so at my unit, whenever I got back, we started drilling with my unit. They're all really cool guys, and girls. There's a few females in there, and as soon as I showed up, we were getting ready, to do NTC, which is the National Training Center in Fort Irwin, California, and that was kind of intense because I had never heard anything like that before. And whenever we went, the desert is like, I don't know where we landed at, but we went to Oklahoma, or we went to the airport, and it was like 70 degrees in Oklahoma at the time. We got on the plane, we flew to California. California is like 65 degrees, and it felt nice. We got into the bus and we started driving, and everything started dying as we were going into the desert. And we were all air conditioned. And then as soon as the doors opened up and we got out to go in, check in NTC, it was like 125 degrees out there. So it was like walking into the oven. Like, it would just hit you and just steal your breath. It was like, oh my gosh. Like, and then we checked in, we did the box thing, and it was intense. Like, NTC, when you go there, it's like this giant laser tag thing that they have. They put sensors on all the vehicles. They put sensors on all of you, on your gun, on everything, and you're just shooting blanks. And we got attacked a few times, and I got to shoot my rifle at some Op 4 guys. Yeah, and then, like, when you go to NTC, like, all the Op 4 guys, they're all former. Some of them are former Army. They're all like special operators and stuff like that, and they're just there to to embarrass you. Like, that's what they do, and it was pretty fun. I got to my unit. We shot down a helicopter that flew over us. So they were the helicopters they use is like Op 4. So we were supposed to pretend that they were Hinds, which is like it's the Russian heavy armored helicopter, right? So my M4 is not going to do a dang thing to this armored helicopter, but this Lakota is the type of bird that they were using as Hinds. Flew over, and I was just like, bang, 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 just shooting at that sucker, and its light started blinking. I was like, yeah, we got it. I was like, in reality, that would never. I would have been like, oh my gosh, run for cover.
Amazing how the training environment works like that.
Yeah. But they had like at our little forward operating base, our little FOB, that we had all of our birds and stuff. We had our 15 tangos that were there. There were some 15 uniforms there. And there was also like the drone guys there, which that's kind of a cool MOS. Like, they train at Fort Huachuca, and I don't even know what their MOS is. It's like 15 something, like whiskey or Yankees or something like that. Anyways, like, you would hear that drone go off, and it would just fly. It would fly off, and it would take pictures and like all kinds of stuff, all kinds of scouting missions and stuff like that. And it was pretty fun. But the whole time we were at NTC, I changed one bolt. I helped set up everything, and I changed a bolt. So on the helicopter that this bolt went out on, it's the rear stabilizer, which is, if you look at a helicopter, you've got the main rotor, and then you've got the tail rotor, and then on the back of the helicopter you have a sheet metal plate. It's not, well, it's like the tail flap that goes up and down. That's the stabilizer, and that keeps the helicopter from bouncing, right? Well, this pilot was complaining that he was feeling heavy vibrations when he was flying, so they flew down, and our TI, which our TI checks, he checks everything. He's like the more senior mechanic or whatever, and the stabilizer bolt had gone out on this tail stabilizer. So me and my other buddy, we went out there to go change it, and when we changed it out, so the bolt is supposed to be smooth, but as it flies, the vibrations in the helicopter rub that bolt down, and whenever we pulled it out, it had grooves in there. I mean, deep grooves in this bolt. And like, you had the one that we changed out, which was smooth, and then we had this one, which was like had chunks taken out of it.
Grand Canyon.
Yeah, like, I was like, oh my gosh. But no, I had a lot of fun in my unit. When we were at NTC, we did DART missions. So as tangos and stuff, you do DART missions, which is the downed aircraft retrieval team, and it's your mission to go out there. Like, if a helicopter crashes out there, you you get together, you form a convoy, you go to location, you secure the aircraft. You, if you can, repair it so it can take off again, or if it's really gone, then you place explosives, blow it up, and leave. Like secure it, secure any people there, weapons, any kind of electronics. So it was pretty fun to go out there and check, and yeah, I had a lot of fun in NTC in my unit, and I was only in my unit for about a couple of years, and then I left to go to OCS. So
okay, so speaking of OCS, what drove you to make that decision? Why OCS? Why go the officer route?
So I wanted to be an officer from the moment I joined. From the moment I joined the National Guard, the Army, I wanted to be on the officer side, because when I joined, I had over like 96 credit hours in college. So I'm almost there. I think right now I've only got like 7 classes left. So I asked intensely all my recruiters, what's the path that I should do? Like, I want to do this. This is my end goal. How can I get there? And they all of them said, OCS would be probably the best bet. You go to your unit, like go through basic, go through AIT, go to your unit, get a couple of years of training and stuff like that, and experience in the Army, and then go to OCS. And I was like, okay, I can do that. And that's what I did. And I've just kind of kept this path, like, the end goal is OCS. That's what I want.
Very cool. So it was a deliberate choice to go the enlisted, get some experience, and then do OCS instead of just going directly to OCS like Chad and myself did.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I had no idea about 09C or anything like that.
Your recruiter failed you.
Yeah, I was failed. No, I imagine that they didn't even suggest that to me, because I hadn't completed my college degree yet. So
that makes sense.
And at the time, they weren't really struggling for officers or anything like that. So
yeah,
it's
different now too. Like, whenever we were going to phase 1 of OCS, like, it's a smart thing that he actually did go and get accredited, because when we were going, what was the kid's name? Was it Johnson, Chad? Is that who it was that, like, so we had a group that was going to phase 1 with us for officer candidate school, and the kid had enough credit hours according to doctrine at that point. And then when we went to phase 1, we were reading the SOP that, like, literally they give you the SOP for phase 1 like the day you go, which is ridiculous. Like, I could have been reading this thing for a week and had it memorized. Instead, you have to memorize it in the 2 hours you drive up to Salina, Kansas.
Yeah.
But the kid was reading through and saw it. He goes, oh my gosh, I don't have enough credit hours to go to this phase 1 in Kansas. Like, literally that day, if he hadn't read that thing, he could have been on the car with us and not known that he was not eligible to be there. So, I mean, he lucked out just reading that little stipulation in the SOP.
Yeah.
Like, got lucky that he didn't hop on that car with us and be like, well, I guess I'm going back.
Yeah.
Or I'm hanging out with you guys for 2 weeks. But, so how has and Ivy has not been with our class specifically the entire time. Yeah. You were class 6-8 before, correct?
Well, I was with their pre OCS, so I went to accelerated with that year of class 6-8.
Okay.
And when I went to accelerated, I injured my right leg. Like, it was like 3 days before phase 1 ended.
Oh my gosh.
And like I remember, like, we had our full packs on. We were going to the classroom, and we're all stepping off this big, I mean, it was like 4 foot, or not 4 foot, but like, I mean, it was a big stone step down. And I stepped down, and I stepped hard on my right leg. And I mean, it just, like, as soon as I did it, I was like, oh my gosh, that hurts so bad. I cried out. I was like, ah! And went in there, and I had the medics check me out, and they were like, oh, you got some meniscus tearing in there. And I was like, oh, crap. So I was like, okay. So I went on profile. They were like, okay, so you can't, if you're on profile by the end of phase 1, like, you won't pass phase 1. So I was like, okay, so just give me a profile for a couple of days just to make it through, and I'll get off profile before phase 1 ends, and I'll get into phase 2. And they're like, okay. So I was doing that. I was kind of taking it easy. I was like, I just need like 1 day of rest. And because, I mean, phase 1 is intense. Like, it's probably the most intense, like, because you got your chow hall runs, and like, you're running with full packs, and my little platoon that we had, our PTs, platoon trainers, they were they were like sadistic is what I like. We all had our rifles, and then they were like, oh, that's not good enough. Like then they started giving us like these RPGs that we had to carry, and I ended up carrying the RPG and doing road guard, and like it was just like I was sprinting with this extra 40 pounds that I had with all my ruck and stuff.
Yeah,
and it was just.
You went to South.
I went to South Dakota.
South Dakota,
yeah.
And South Dakota is the worst too. That's what at least our training cadre say. Like they say, South Dakota is no joke. Like they are meaner than snot up there, and they actually quit sending OCS candidates up there for a while because the attrition rate was just so bad.
Yeah.
So there's multiple phases of OCS, and you have accelerated and you have traditional. So I mean, obviously you have ROTC and federal OCS, but so for us in the Guard, we have accelerated and traditional. Chad and I and Ivy are currently in the traditional program. So Ivy originally went to accelerated in South Dakota.
Yeah.
And typically they say go to the Alabama one because the Alabama one's easier, but it's in the winter time though too. But so the accelerated summer is in South Dakota in the summertime, and like I said again, our cadre for a while quit sending people there because it was so bad. The attrition rate was so bad. The stuff that they did up there was so difficult.
Yeah.
And I'll say this too, phase one for us was not a cakewalk. I mean, I wouldn't say, looking back on it, I would say it really wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
But like while we were doing it, like some of the stuff sucked pretty good. Like the worst part of it to me was like what you said was sprinting to chow. Like, I mean, they would say, put on your assault packs, and I had a crap ton of stuff in my assault pack, a crap ton.
Yeah.
And I had, because I didn't want to be without any item that I would think I would need, so I just so my thing had to weigh like 20, 30 pounds.
Oh, yeah, easily.
And, you're wearing your helmet, you got your flick on, you got your stinking camelback on.
Yeah, three things of water.
Yeah.
You got like 12 pounds of water on you or something like that.
And then if you're doing road guard is the worst.
Oh, terrible.
And I was in first platoon too. Like if you're in second platoon and third platoon, at least like the slow pokes will slow down the entire run. But if you're in first platoon, like you're going, like they're like keep up with the cadre or you're in trouble. And so we're just sprinting. And I remember being road guard, and that was the worst because you have to sprint ahead of the people sprinting and put your hand out and say halt, and then you have to catch. And there's like 4 intersections too that you got to do this at. Oh my gosh, and it's really not that long of a run, but when you run it fast in full gear, it is tough.
Yeah. I remember the very first day, like we were getting ready to go to our chow run and getting ready. They're like, all right, double time. And I was like, I can do double time in full gear. And then it was like we're running and then running faster. And I was just like, oh my gosh. Like I was not expecting that.
Flat out sprinting in the summer. I mean, I don't know how hot it was in there, but in Salina, it was hot.
South Dakota wasn't too bad. There was a couple of days that it was pretty intense. Like we had to go at Heat Cat 5, where
we were in Heat Cat 5 almost every day in Salina, except for like we lucked out on day 1 whenever they, the cannon goes off and they start the show. Like they start the tack attack. Oh my gosh, it was cool that day. It was like 80 something. So and it was cloudy, overcast. We thought it might rain, but yeah, it was cool that day. And then every other day the sun came out and it got. Heat Cat 5 every day. We was like yes. Wearing the PC cap and everything else is fine. You're just like, oh, thank God.
I'll never forget this. Whenever phase 1 started, like whenever we got there, it was sunny, not a cloud in the sky. And then as it started getting closer and closer to the actual time for phase 1 to start, it started getting cloudier and cloudier. And then like I remember the colonel giving us the speech, and we're all in formation. We got all of our stuff. And it just started like, as his speech was closing, it started raining on us, and I was just like, "Oh my gosh, what is this?" And then we did an about face and got just destroyed in the rain. Like I was just like, "Oh my gosh!"
Flow's getting heavier. It's getting heavier. Slower, and slower. Like, that's the tack attack or OCS. Phase 1 is what I thought basic training would be.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I thought basic training would be like, every minute of it. And OCS was closer to what I envisioned basic training would be like.
Yes. So, like, say I went into basic with the idea that it was like, okay, so I've really got to push myself because I wasn't in the greatest shape when I went to basic. But I was under the impression that I could fail basic. And some people did, but you got to be like...
You got to be a scumbag to fail, or you have to get injured
yeah.
bad doing something stupid.
Yeah, because there was some people that I graduated basic training with that, like, they didn't pass a single ruck. They fell out of every ruck. Like the last ruck, the forge, this person didn't even carry their ruck like halfway through. Like, they were just walking, and they couldn't keep up with us. And I mean, it was just like, at that point I was like, okay, you're never gonna fail basic training. Like, they'll just keep you. There was one person that was with us that they got recycled like 6 times before they finally graduated with us. But it was like you're there. You're never gonna leave unless you quit or you
blow it.
Yeah.
That's what I remember from basic training, was just like, if you think basic training was hard, you're in for a tough life in the end.
Yes.
You're in for a tough military career.
Yeah. But no, I've enjoyed OCS. I've enjoyed my time in the Army quite a bit. Like, it's fun to get tired and work out, keeps you in shape, keeps you healthy. One story. So I remember for OCS, the land nav is a big critical event. Like, your 2 critical events in phase 1, you got to pass your 6-mile ruck and you got to pass your land nav. And before OCS, I was like, okay, so I want to get a red light. We're authorized red light. So I want to get something that's better than like my L light. And I went through on Amazon. I found this like red light. It was probably like just a couple inches big, whatever. But I was like, okay. Well, I started looking at the reviews on it, and this was like, oh, this is great for OCS. And I was like, that's it for me. So I bought it, and I put it on there, and I was like, yeah, I got it. And then when we passed our 6-mile ruck and we started doing our land nav, like, we started doing the night land nav. And this was like the day before we tested. I remember I was going through this brush trying to find my point, and I bent down, and my red light came out. And whenever you use that red light, it was like a spotlight
beam.
Like, you could see in the dark. It was like a regular light, but it fell out of my thing, out of my pocket, and I got to my point, and I was like, oh crap, where's my rest of my red light? It's like, no. And then I just when I took the test, I was like, oh my gosh, I had my crappy little L light. You can't see 10 meters in front of you. It's just terrible.
Yeah. We in phase 1, Chad and I got these lamps, these red lamps that a friend of his who went to federal OCS recommended. He goes, get these are good. And I got called the Blue Falcon because of how bright the beam was. Chad was like, wow, you carry a light that bright, you're a Blue Falcon. Like, I was just like, federal OCS approved.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like this, I'm beating the standard.
Yeah.
So yeah, Chad was not happy with the brightness of my light.
You got like a red lantern out there.
Yeah, I did, but the land nav was tough. So
it was, yeah.
I say tough. It wasn't tough. It was just, it's different doing it at night.
Very
different.
Very mathematically precise. Like, I mean, if you have like 1,000-meter point from point A to point B, like any deviation in your trajectory, in your azimuth is going to send you 100 meters on either direction, probably.
And that's actually how I met Ivy. Well, not really met him. Like, I'd been in pre-OCS I only went to pre-OCS for like 3 drills before phase 1 showed reared its ugly head. Yeah. So I felt super unprepared when I went to phase 1. Like, I did land nav once, and the one time I did land nav, I was out at night doing the night land nav, and I dropped my dropped my land nav coordinates, and I was going to turn in my points, and I was like, I did it. I found all my points, and I know they're right.
Yeah.
And then Sergeant Hocher was like, hand it to me, and I was like, I dropped it. I was like, it's over. I started running back into the darkness looking for these land, and then here comes Ivy. Hey, I found some land nav points out there. I was like, God, he saved me. So yeah, that was my first real memory of Ivy out there. I was like, Ivy saved me. He goes, yeah, we'll be in I didn't even know that you had already gone to phase 1 at that point.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, I'll be in traditional, and then he never showed up with us at phase 1. And I got back, and they're like, yeah, Ivy already went to phase 1. I was like, he did? So now he's in our class with us, and they're like, yeah, Ivy's in your class with you. I was like, that's cool.
Yeah. That was pretty fun, man. That Gruber land nav course is
it's not hard.
Not hard at all.
It's a pretty easy one.
I mean, you can handrail real easy.
Well, except for the fact you have to claw over barbed wire to like get to some point. Like I was out there and I was walking one of the senior officer candidates who was basically a commissioned officer just waiting to do the ceremony was out there with us, and I was like, I'm following this, I'm handrailing this road, but I can't find the point, and I should have found it by now. He goes, yeah, you're not. This road right here you're walking on isn't on the map. And I was like, what do you mean it's not on the map? And he was like, yeah, it's that road over there. And I was like, over the barbed wire fence. And he was like, yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is crazy. Like, so you want me to climb over this barbed wire fence to find a point? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, what? Like, usually a barbed wire fence indicates like, is there like a minefield over there? They don't have a military installation, for God's sake. So it's always scary because they're specific at phase 1. They're like, do not cross over any barbed wire fences or you will be in a danger area. And I was like, okay. I was like, it's not like that at Fort Gruber. Crawl over whatever you want to get to your point. I was like, God.
South Dakota had a couple of fences that you had to crawl over. I will say this, like with OCS, if you can, for phase 1 specifically, if you can make it to land nav, you've passed phase 1, in my opinion. Like if you can
find your land nav points, you're done.
Yeah, because like the land nav, that whole week, because phase 1's about 2 weeks, and that whole week of land nav is way easier than that first week.
Oh, yeah, the only thing I'll say is
mess with
your feet will hurt by the end of the day because you're on your feet all day and you're walking through wet mush. Depending on if it was soggy out there every day, so like my feet were soaked at the end of it. So your feet are wet, they're sore, they're aching. Like I remember on one of the practice and day to night land nav, I literally just sat down on the side. I was like, my feet hurt so bad. I just sat on the road for like 15 minutes, and people walk past me. Are you all right? Yeah, I'm just taking a break, sitting down, relaxing for a little bit. And I was like, I'll see you at the finish line because I just got to sit down for a little bit, and rest my head because you're just tired. You're dog tired the whole time because you're not sleeping. You're on fire. You're doing fire guard stuff. So. And again, I don't think phase 1 was retrospectively it wasn't that hard. When we were doing it, I was like, this is hell. This is the worst. Yeah. But when you look back, it's really not that difficult. It's just play the game, keep your head up and stay motivated, and like I said, just walk from point A to point B and you'll survive.
Yeah, and that's really what it is. It's a game. The PTs, they definitely try and break you.
Yeah.
Well, no matter how they can get to, especially at South Dakota, like they were trying to break everybody.
Yeah, and that's what they do. They want to weed out people who will not make good officer candidates because they don't want people who are indecisive or who are going to break down to be leading troops out on the battlefield. So whether that be for a combat MOS or a non-combat MOS, you got to make those decisions to potentially that will potentially endanger people's lives.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give to future officer candidates or future folks who are looking to go through OCS at this point in time?
I would definitely say, because that phase 1 tests you. Even like, because like looking back on it, it wasn't that hard, but when you're going through it, it's tough. Like you really puts some mental strain on you. You don't have any sleep during the time, and you're just going from one thing to another, and you're just, especially if you're going accelerated, you're just rushing through stuff as fast as you can, taking tests. I think phase 1 you take like 2 or 3 academic tests, like leadership tests and this and that. But I would say just keep your head up. Like you really want to prepare yourself mentally. Like you're gonna go through hell, but if you can make it through, if you can make it 2 weeks in past the land nav, I mean you've got it. You've got the schedule down. You've got everything else down. Like all you got to do now is just continue to pass your tests, focus on one exam at a time, and really mark your test as your time. Like okay, so I've got my 4 mile coming up. I've got my 9 mile coming up. And you pass that, then it's like okay, so I'm getting to the nitty gritty. Then the last 2 weeks is going to be your phase 3, which is that's something that we're going to all go through.
Sticks lanes.
Yeah. And that is really the fun part.
It is.
Because you're doing you're doing
combat related stuff.
What you're trained to do, running missions. So I'm receiving the order, and I am creating this mission, and I'm going to come up with this plan to complete said mission. So,
yeah, I would say I would piggyback off of his advice, and I would just say, keep your head up, know what's in front of you, and if you're in a leadership role, don't expect to get much sleep that night. At least in phase 1. I remember in the rules, like, because you'll sit there, like, I got unceremoniously appointed XO as the second group of kids. Like, I wasn't, thank goodness I wasn't the first 2 that had to do it, but I was the second group of kids. And as we got up there, I'm just reading through the SOP, like, what are my jobs? What are my responsibilities? It's like, I have to make a PL binder. Or I have to make, not a PL binder, I have to make a XO binder, and I have to keep a roster of all the current candidates, all of their weapons and serial numbers. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. Like, I have to do a lot of stuff. You have to communicate with 3 platoons worth of students.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I have to get all this information from them. So I go up to their PLs and I say, I need a list of all your guys, their name, their full name, and serial numbers of their weapons.
Yeah.
And then as you say the same thing to every single PL of each platoon, and you say, get me this information, and then you put it in a binder. And most people didn't bring a binder. I brought an extra binder because somebody said you should probably bring a binder with you. So I just happened to. So I was up all night organizing these sheets and stuff when I was the XO, on top of writing a essay for not carrying my weapon with me when the actual CO of the entire thing, he's, Watson, come here right now. And it was after the 6 mile where I'm sitting down on my ruck eating my meal, and he was like, come here right now. And I was like, crap, so I just get up and go, and then, where's your rifle? And I was like, oh.
Yeah.
He's like, 500-word essay tonight. So I'm writing a 500-word essay, trying to organize this binder, and then I'm making a list for the next XO to how to, it's a XO guide for dummies is what I call it. And I stayed up all night writing this thing. So the guy who came after me, and like, you can ask Chad, like, it was somebody in his platoon, and there's like, your brother, like, this thing is amazing. This binder, like, he gave me a dummy's guide to survive this. And that's what you do. You want to set the guy behind you up for success. And that's what I did. I gave him the binder. I said, everything you need to know about your job is in this binder. I mean, you can read it in the SOP too, but it's also in this binder.
Yeah.
And everybody who went after me was like, dude, this binder's amazing.
Yeah.
And so that's what you do. You don't expect to get a lot of sleep. Set people up for success, and you're going to be, if you fail at something, you can expect to be writing a 500-word essay that night about it. Because I remember sitting there staying up late at night, and there'd be people getting up at the middle of the night. I'm like 2 a.m. still working on this thing. And like somebody wake up, Watson, you need to go to bed. And I was like, I know, but I got to finish this thing. So, and then when I handed it to the cadre member, they were like incredibly impressed with, like, they didn't pass me, of course.
No, yeah.
But the guy was like, he's like, where'd you get this binder? And I was like, I made it. And he goes, how did you make this? And I was like, I brought the binder with me. And he was like, you did? And I was like, yeah. Like, I was told it'd be a good idea to bring like a binder or something. And it was like, but him thinking like, what are the odds of this kid who had the binder becoming the XO for the position that needed the binder specifically? You know?
Yeah.
Like, it's like a shot in the dark, once in a lifetime thing. So it was good. So just survive, keep your head up, and just listen to the cadre.
Yeah.
It's not there to make you fail. It's there to set you up for success. They don't want you to fail the course. They want everyone who goes to pass.
Yeah.
But they will weed out the They'll separate the wheat from the chaff.
I will say that, like, if you're in a leadership position, just expect to not get a go. Like, especially in phase 1, they're not going to give anybody goes. They're just going to tell you that you're terrible. You're a terrible person. You suck at life. Like, just expect that.
Just give up.
Yeah. Yeah. But
would you have any more advice you would give, or any just life or dad advice you would give out to anybody who's in the Army or in general?
Yeah, just keep your head up, man. Like, it's the suck only lasts so long, and it's the suck that really brings. That's where you make your friends. That's where you make the fun memories. Is when everybody's out there sucking together, and it's really the being in the Army is probably the most fun I've had. It's definitely the worst fun I've ever had. I'll say. But
what an apt description.
But I would not trade anything that I've done in the Army for anything. I've had a really fun time, all of my training and stuff like that, and you never stop training. That's one of the things that the NCOs drill into you. Is is that you never stop. You're always learning stuff. You're always learning new things, new techniques, new SOPs, new things to do, and they just, everything is all designed to make you just as fit and smart and streamlined as possible. So
that's great advice. Like I would say, don't get comfortable. If you're comfortable, you're not growing.
Yeah.
So that's the way to live. And I know that sounds like stupid, Jocko Willink type or David Goggins motivational speaking advice, but I mean it's as true as it can be.
Yeah.
It's as true as it can be. So, Ivy, I think, unless you got anything else you want to add, I think that's about all we had for you today, man. I appreciate you coming out and doing this interview with us.
Yeah, man. Anytime.
Well, that's about all we've got for today, folks. This is the GOC, or the Grand Old Cast. I appreciate y'all watching. Have a blessed day, everyone.
Bye, guys.